Oh hi, I'm Dusteru. I'm not really one for big openings, and you're probably watching this in queue right now, so I only have 5-10 minutes to really get the details to you, so I'll make it fast. I created a whole new plague system, a new monster mechanic that will add depth, will add replayability, and will add an actual goal in the match for a monster player besides just killing the teens. People wanted depth to their monster, and guess what? I'm adding it right here. Okay, so let's just get straight into how this system works. It's very similar to Rage, as it builds up passively throughout the match. When you're in Chase, it goes up quite fast. When you're outside of Chase, not so much. I put this in here to help incentivize people to actually try and fight teens, instead of running around the map trying to hide and collect Doom all match till they get their one-shot combo. Werewolf players, yeah, I'm looking at you. Also, I understand that the whole numbers thing, like, oh, here's a percent here, a number bump here, is quite boring to some people here. So here's some time codes on the screen. This is when the actual video gets to the meat of the new system. Not just adjustments to make it more practical, but here is the new stuff. For all those that actually want to listen to all the boring numbers, well, just stay watching and we'll get right into it. We have Dooma, which still works very similar to how it used to. Still only gives one charge to your bar per Dooma ball, but there can only be 4 in the match at one point. And after one is consumed, it won't show up for another minute and a half. I actually don't know how Dooma works proper in VHS right now, so if it works like that, well, then it doesn't change. But that is the change I am making. Getting hits still charges your plague bar, but it actually counts for 2 now. So instead of getting 1 charge per hit, you actually get 2 per hit. Wow, isn't that fancy? Now we have our first spicy change. Wounds grant you 1 soul essence. So instead of just feeling like a dumb schlub when you extend a little too far and you didn't realize that that sword was right around the corner, well, at least you get 1 point for going down like a chump. Let's hop back to the passive bar, because there's a change there as well. I wanted monsters to feel like they're getting stronger throughout the match. They're not stagnant on how they earn their plagues. So I added a little buff. So every time you use a plague, you get a 10% increase to your passive bar. Only up to a max of 30%, but still. You use your plague 3 times, and you get a 30% buff to your passive gain. So when you're in chases more, you'll gain soul essence just a little bit faster. It's not much, but I feel like it would help make things speed up. So you're not stuck late game with 4 weapons and feeling like you have to drag out the match to try and get your next plague. Long gone will be the fetching of random plagues. You will no longer be able to randomly find a plague during a match. Now, every plague that you would summon, you can choose. What? That's crazy. That's kind of busted. Not only do you choose the plague you want to use, let's imagine a world where you're using the jammed plague, the one that it slows healing and crafting, and the power plague, which makes your cooldowns go faster. So instead of 30 seconds to get your wart echolocation, it's now only 20 seconds, right? Great on their own. Let's imagine a world where you can put 2 of those together. You now have the jammed and the power plague together. Excuse me? What the hell? Together? You're just trying to make monster OP, aren't you? Let's see. Maybe. Also, you could add a 3rd one to it, so you could have 3 total. Whoa! Put the pitchforks down. Put them down. I swear. I'm not just making ridiculously broken monster stuff. Please. Let me explain. So let's get into the interesting part of the video, the new stuff, the cool stuff, the core of the new system. So the plague system will not be broken because it's going to be rebalanced in a way similar to the perk system, but different, and I'll get into that. Right now, when you use a perk in VHS, it's worth a certain amount of points. So let's say Vice Grip as an example. It's worth 14 points, and that takes away from your 30-point total. And in that 30 points, you can use that to make a build of perks that you want. You can only get a certain amount of perks. You can use lower quality perks. You're only limited to the quantity amount, 30 total. The plague system will not have a quantity cap. There is no max 30 points. You can go as high as you can dream. Whoa, 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 whoa. I know. I'm not making it better. That still sounds pretty busted. I'm almost there. So just like the perk system, plague fragments will each have a certain amount of points assigned to them. Like, let's say jammed would be worth 10 soul essence to actually summon from the beyond. This is important because what I'm adding is a bunch of new plague fragments that you can combine together to make distinctly unique plagues that you can summon in the match. So you can customize and create your own kind of playstyle using different kinds of new plagues. You can mush them together if they're weaker, or if you want them all strong and you want all three, you can do that. But it will cost you heavily. How this system would work would be the amount that each plague fragment would cost. Let's say I had one that cost 10 soul essence. That's how much more you would need to collect during the match. So if you were to add 3 separate plague fragments and they're all worth 10, you would have to collect 30 soul essence in the match to get a plague. You can use your plague over and over again. As I said, you can earn them passively faster, but the better they are, the longer they take to get, because the stronger their impact they will have on the match. So adding 3 might not actually even be worth it if you want to get consistent value out of the plagues. If you want to grind them faster, because each time you use a plague, you passively gain more soul essence slightly quicker. So if you're trying to rock 30 soul essence each time, you're not going to be getting the plague out very much that match, maybe even once if you're lucky. So not only can you have your own customizable plague that you can adjust the quantity on with whatever you want, whether you want a really fast plague that you can get out several times during the match, or maybe once or twice, but they're very high impact, you get to choose. And, well, there's a little bit more. You can actually take 2 custom plagues into the match. So this is to give you a bit more variety. If you would want a certain plague in this type of situation and another plague in that kind of situation, it gives you more options to work with. You're not just stuck with one the entire match. You can have variety. Because every time you use that plague, you may passively get your soul essence faster, but the plague itself will have 1 soul essence added to it, and this will go till like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, max 5 times. So let's say I was talking earlier about the one that had 30 total soul essence that you would need. Now that would be around 35, but it would never go over 35. So this also is a little bit of incentive to not just abuse one kind of plague, because every plague you make, you can't repeat the plague fragments you put in. You can't have both of your plagues have jammed on it. You have to pick which plague has which. So I want this plague to be jammed and power, and I want this plague to be rage and, I don't know, agony. So that makes you not have to cheese with only one really strong plague, but also lets you have more variety during the match. Another little great addition that I would like added would be a spectral system to this. So this is more for teens to play around with and interact with the plague system. So teens now can find Dooma in the map and actually consume it, so the monster cannot use it. So like an example, you know how you find Luma across the map and it helps boost your knockout bar so you can get up faster? Well, if you come across a Dooma, you can actively sabotage that Dooma and then consume it to use it as Luma. This takes like a short time, like a couple seconds, so you're not massively just super producing and taking away Dooma from the monster. And after a minute and a half, another Dooma will spawn into the match, so it's not even that busted. It's mainly just something that teens can do to be a bit more active while they're down. So you can choose whether you want to crawl around or maybe try and find the Dooma across the map and sabotage it. It's up to you. The same applies to dead players. Now you don't have a reason to just immediately leave the match if the book is gone. Now you can actually keep sabotaging Dooma during the match for your live teammates to stop plague progression. It's not much and probably won't keep a lot of people in matches, but it's something, and I think it would add a little bit more depth to the Spectral System, which I think is kind of underutilized. So now an important question needs to be asked is, how does this visually show up? Well, right now we have the plagues. When you grab them, you get the little worm and you squish them. They're visually distinct, so you'll know the difference between them. Like Pestilence is very noticeably different from like a power plague, for example. But if you're combining plagues, what happens to them? Do they just go away and it's all just one kind of universal plague? No. For all the new plague fragments that I've added and the additional ones, I think they're separated into different categories. So we have the main additional plagues, and they serve their niche purpose. So any plague that would kind of fit in thematically with them would be tied to that. You could have plague fragments from different kinds of plagues. So like you could have a rage-based plague and a power type plague, and it won't be both of them. It would be whatever the first one you choose would be. So if you had a rage-based plague as the first one in your slot, the plague that you would summon during the match would take on the appearance of rage. So this just keeps all the cool plague animations the way they are and lets you categorize the different ways that a plague would interact with the match. So it just keeps everything clean and kind of streamlined. So I'll go over the categories and all the new plagues that I would like added. Alright, so this is my favorite part, so I'm actually excited that we're here. So let's start first with Pestilence. The Pestilence plague is the theme of on hits. So these would be plague fragments that only apply their effect if you get a hit off. So to start off, we have the first, we have Busted, the original Pestilence plague. It's just the normal one, you can't heal for a certain amount of duration. Alright, that's fine. We would also have a drop item plague. So this is similar to the Deathwire perk where you hit them and their item falls. But this would be only the one time on a plague hit. So it's a bit more niche, but it could still see some use. Then we have a new one, which I call Anguish. And this, I guess, is another mechanic. But Anguish would make your team's breaths and grunts louder for a small duration. So you know how you're like walking by and you can very clearly hear that injured Leo in the corner going, "Oh, ow." Well, now instead of that, you'll hear, "Oh, oh, oh," just, slightly louder. This also applies for teens who are not injured and they just be like breathing a little louder because they're in pain or whatever. And then we have Crippled, where the teen actually receives a slow for a very short duration. This would only be like 5 seconds. But it would help to, negate like Glorious perk where you sprint further. It's just a very light reduction, and maybe you can pair it with something else. And we also have Tainted, where your tension track sticks to the teen. So if you hit a teen after using this plague, then your tension track is attached to that teen and you are dead silent, so you could sneak up on other people. That would be pretty crazy to play against, but it could be very cool and it could add a lot of new play styles. Now we're going to move on to Power. This is basically monster utility or cooldown items. So of course we have the normal one where you have the cooldown reduction. We keep that one. We have a cool speed buff, which is a very, very small speed buff, like 5% or something like that, and for a short time you get a speed boost. Very simple. Another one would be extra lunge. For a very short duration, your lunge is extended so you can swing further. You know that werewolf who already had the claw that could swing you from like 4 miles away? Well, now it's 8 miles, so isn't that rad? But the one I really like personally, and actually started the whole reason I made this video, the whole reason I spent time sitting down and creating this whole mechanic for this game is this item. It's Temporary Shield. You know how Wart gets his shield and you can slow him down and you can break it? Well, this plague would add that to any monster that uses it. It would be a very short duration, and it would be a lot of points. I should explain this whole thing is designed so it could easily rebalance anything that's bad. So shield would definitely be very strong, especially on a werewolf. So if we had Temporary Shield in the game and it was priced pretty highly, but it was still overpowered, you can go in and adjust it, make the shield duration shorter, or increase how much it actually requires to get it. That's why I have built this whole system to actually be very easy to balance if things go a little too far one way. You can just easily adjust the cost of a plague fragment, or just change the duration. Simple. So, Temp Shield would be very strong. It would be one of the most valuable ones. But I think it'd be super cool to have available in other monsters. Imagine a Body Master who can exclusively play Body Master, and they don't need to rely on tricks. They can actually force themselves in some situations to attack the enemy, which is awesome. I think that would make so many different varieties of playstyles. So next we have Fury, which is just any rage-based plague fragment. So, of course, you have the usual one where you just get a short little boost of rage to your bar. Another one would be Feast Increase, that lets you double the speed at which you feast. So you can make some really good plays where you use like the all-consuming perk from Warp and the Feast Increase from this plague to get really quick enrages, but you still have to feast. So it's a little bit more niche because you can't just whip it out whenever. Another one would be Temporary Rage, where this one would be extremely high cost, but what it does is it gives you rage instantly. You instantly get rage for a very short duration, but the kicker would be that you would lose your entire bar if you don't get a hit. So if you get a hit, you would lose your bar, but if you didn't get the hit at the end of the duration, you still lose your rage bar anyways. So there's a little bit of cost to it. So it might not even be worth to use this plague at that time because you're only like 1 or 2 hits away from a rage anyways. And then next we have kind of the biggest one that I feel like you can work a lot with, and I think is pretty cool. And with Dread, it's generally for suppression, jamming, stealth, and tracking. So the first one we have here is the Tension Track Suppression. So this one is kind of like the earlier one where you apply the tension track to a teen, but you don't apply it. You just don't have your tension track. So you can still be heard with your big, heavy wart footsteps, but they won't have the tension track. They'll just have the short, quick understanding, oh, he's right there. Uh-oh. Another one is, jammed. We know jammed. We love jammed. That one is still there, and you can pick it if you really want to slow crafts and heals, but it's going to be a little bit pricier. Then you have Aura Reveal. And this one is just, all it does is reveals the aura of all teens for a very short duration, like maybe 5 seconds. And you get to see their movements and follow them. It's simple, but it could be quite effective. And then a cool one called Posture Check. This doesn't need to be the name, this is just kind of what I put down. This one is the idea I originally had for balancing monsters, but this one is when you use this plague, it gives you a snapshot of all the teens and their weapon statuses. So this would mean you use the plague and then the teens' weapons would appear next to their names, and it would show you which weapon they have and how many charges they have in it. The kicker is, though, it doesn't change. You can't see how many charges they use constantly. It's just a snapshot of when you took it. So you'll see that a flamethrower has red on it, and you know, oh, he has hardly any ammo left in that flamethrower, so I can push them. So the weapons would stay constantly on the side until you're in a chase with that teen. So if they no longer have that weapon, it's gone and it's erased and you lose that. But if they still have the weapon, it'll stay put. You won't know the charges accurately, but you'll still know that they do have that weapon. And lastly, we have Agony. This is generally just health bar specific plagues. Of course, we have the original Agony, which is just bleed out timer. You bleed out a little bit faster. Whoop-de-doo. And then my custom one that I added was a little off the top. This one shows you the aura and the weapon status of the teen with the most HP. It's like the aura reading, but with extended aura reading. Instead of like 5 seconds where you see all the teens, it's like 15 seconds you see this one teen with the most HP. It also tells you what weapon they have, if they have a weapon, and how many charges, kind of like Posture Check. It's a mixture of both, but it serves the function of you haven't hit this teen very much in the match. So here you go. Here is a huge incentive to go after the teen with the most HP. This does not work when there is 1 teen left in the trial. It will work with 2, and it's very good for isolating it too. But at 1, you'll get no value for it. Alright, so that's all the plague fragment ideas that I had come up with. I think it would add a lot of depth. It's really cool. You can add to a lot of different things with it. I just am so fascinated if this was an actual mechanic. And the beauty is you can add more down the line, so you can have tons to work with. And lastly, how do you get these plague fragments? Well, it's a lot like the weapon system. You have to use the plagues that you have right now, and you grind out experience towards them. It's a kind of a mixture of the weapons and the journey system, actually. So what I have pictured is it's called the Ritual of the Beyond, or the Beyond Ritual, something like that. And it looks a lot like the journey screen, but instead of being from left to right, you work from middle outwards. So you have different parts of the web. You have the rage part of the web, and the dread part of the web, and agony and stuff like that. So what this does is you gain experience for using the plagues in the match. So if you use 2 plagues in a match, you get double the XP for it, right? So that experience would go into ritual nodes. And ritual nodes you could place, just like the journey system, you choose where you want to go. But instead of, I have to get all the way to the right side, you can pick, do I want to try and spec into rage? Do I want to spec into dread? Which one do I want to get to? And you can view all of them. They're not mysteries. They're just there for you to grind towards. So if you're like, I really want the shield one, so I'm going to put all of my nodes into that part of the web till I get the shield. Basically, that's just how you do it. So eventually you'll be able to grind them all out, but you won't have access to them all immediately. So some more incentive to play around and toy with different kind of plague combinations. Eventually, if there was more additions, you could add a second plague screen, so you have to get to one of the stars at the end of the web. You can unlock the second part of plague fragments. You know, it's just something to work towards. And I think it would fit thematically with the rest of the systems in the game. And that's it. I officially cannot talk anymore about any other stuff, because that's it. I'm done. If you're still here by the end of the video, I really appreciate it. I put a lot of time into this. It's nothing really crazy, but just sitting down and writing this all out, and recording it, editing it, it took a good amount of time. Time that I enjoyed, but still a lot of time. So thank you. Thank you for watching, and please, if you have any suggestions on how to make the system better, please comment it down below. If there's something you feel is kind of broken or unbalanced that I may have a blind spot to that I don't see right now, please let me know down below. I'm open to tons of criticism, and I really would like this to be a community project, because I definitely think there's something here with this, and I would love to see if others agree, or if people have an issue with this system. I'd just really like to know. I just want to see what the reaction to this would be. And a little message to Hellbent themselves. If you were to see this video and think maybe we should add this to the game, don't worry, you don't have to pay me. I'm giving this idea out just so we can improve the game and make it something even more beautiful than it already is. But if you do use it, I would love it if I could maybe get my own private cosmetic. You know, something just for me to show my little bit of mark on the world. So once again, thank you for watching. I'm Dusteroo, and I'll see you all real soon.